Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. We have summertime and we can thoroughly enjoy it. But do you remember what our summer was 4 years ago? It was the first COVID summer. And oh my God, we all have to die was the prevailing thought. At least until vaccines arrived. At least in the Western world, in the developed world. There, everyone at one point of time got the first shot, got the second shot, maybe a booster. And thanks to these vaccines, COVID turned from a harbinger of death into being something like a nuisance. It was different in the developing countries. There, the vaccination rates were lower, much lower. And NGOs and governments very soon found the culprit for that. The culprit was IP, intellectual property, so the patents on vaccines. And they claimed that IP prevented them from obtaining enough vaccines. And also it was a reason that they had to pay high prices, much higher than elsewhere. And this is why they demanded a waiver. So they wanted to have all the IP protection of patents waived, removed. And this would allow them to produce vaccines by themselves and save their people. They claimed that without IP, thousands and thousands and thousands of persons and lives could have been saved. This is very plain logic and also very false. And here are three reasons why the proponents of a so-called waiver erred. Reason number one, you cannot share what you do not possess. mRNA vaccines were a brand new technology that has just been developed. Raw materials, ingredients, precursors, everything had to be invented from scratch. It had to be purpose-built, literally everything. And production had to be ramped up rapidly to meet global demand, literally global demand, because demand was for the entire population of the world, from 0 to 100 within a matter of weeks. And companies worked with utmost pressure to achieve this. But in the beginning, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And because there was nothing, companies were busy securing and developing those scarce resources that were needed to produce vaccines. Waiving IP would have not led to the production of even one additional dose of vaccine. To the contrary, it would have stretched the already thin supply chains even further, and it would have delayed the delivery of the much needed vaccines. So it's neither ideology nor big pharma brainwash. It's a matter of fact when I say it's not possible to share what you do not possess. So IP cannot be blamed for that. Reason number two, IP enabled cooperation. We all have witnessed the development of partnerships, almost amiable partnerships between companies that usually compete with each other. For example, Pfizer and BioNTech were not best buddies before COVID, but they worked together. Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Moderna, they all found partners with whom they jointly developed vaccines. Normally, they competed for market share. So why did they now cooperate? It was because of IP. Because thanks to IP, they could be sure that all the insights, all the knowledge that the other side gained while partnering was not got not lost, got not stolen, or otherwise fraudulently used after the end of the cooperation. And this is because of the legal framework that IP provided. So in that sense, IP provided more or less an enabling role rather than a prohibiting role. And finally, reason number three, waiver proponents claimed that because of the fact that production sites were located only in developed countries, in the Western world, that the developing countries were cut off from the delivery and they had to pay high prices. So they wanted to produce locally. because they could do it cheaper. Intriguing thought, but blatantly false. It's pure business logic. If you produce something at scale, prices can be lower. And even if we consider that personnel costs in developing countries might be lower, still, if you have to build up a new plant, a new construction site, it's almost impossible to meet these per unit prices that you pay in a fully established and mass producing site. And on top, Moderna, right at the beginning of the pandemic, announced that anyone could take their IP to produce vaccine and join the fight against the pandemic. And guess how many companies took up of these offers? Exactly 0. Not a single company took up the IP and produced it because it was too difficult and too cumbersome. It was not possible. To summarize, IP did not hamper the production nor the access to vaccines. Do not get me wrong. I do not want to claim that there was no shortage of vaccines or problems with access. Definitely, those things existed. But the reasons for that are manifold. Lack of infrastructure, poor planning, dysfunctional health systems, superstition among the population, export restrictions, and others. But IP did not limit the access to vaccines. So instead of using or rather abusing the old claim, patents kill, we should rather focus on those issues that really matter and where we can save lives. Mr. Toastmaster.